Welcome. This is the weekly update of Israel and Christians today. Today is Friday, the 1st of August 2025. Nations are rewarding Hamas terror. Quote, "This reckless decision only serves Hamas propaganda and sets back peace." End of quote. Of Rubio, the American Secretary of State. It's a slap in the face to the victims of October 7. End of quote. The slap in the face was repeated often in reaction to France President Macron's announcement that, quote, "consistent with its historic commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, Paris intends to recognize a Palestinian state." Macron says, "I will make this solemn announcement before the United Nations General Assembly this coming September." Macron stated, "The urgent priority today is to end the war in Gaza and to bring relief to the civilian population." Many remember the pictures of Macron being slapped in the face by his wife Brigitte in May of this year and in 2017 during a visit to southern France. In an effort to end the fighting in Gaza, the recognition of a Palestinian state seems awkward. Many claim, including Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu, that this is a reward for terrorism. Quote of Netanyahu, "Such a move rewards terror and risks creating another Iranian proxy, just as Gaza became," Netanyahu stated. A Palestinian state in these conditions would be a launchpad to annihilate Israel, not to live in peace beside it. Let's be clear. The Palestinians do not seek a state alongside Israel. They seek a state instead of Israel. Commentators argue that Macron's move strengthened Hamas' position at the negotiation table and convinced them not to make a ceasefire deal. Following France's announcements, other states followed suit. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, also intends to recognize a Palestinian state in September before the UN General Assembly. He says, "Unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza and agrees to a ceasefire and to commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution." End of quote. And also, Canada intends to recognize a Palestinian state during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly in September. Although Canada made it clear that its recognition of Palestinian statehood is conditioned on a series of commitments by the Palestinian Authority chief Mahmoud Abbas, including serious governance reforms, the holding of general elections in 2026, in which Hamas will be barred from participating, and the demilitarization of the future state. Israel ambassador to Canada, Ido Moed, said, "Recognizing a Palestinian state in the absence of accountable government, functioning institutions, or benevolent leadership rewards and legitimize the monstrous barbarity of Hamas on October 7, 2023. In the meantime, 11 countries have joined the list, being Andorra, Australia, Finland, Iceland, Ireland, Luxembourg, Malta, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, San Marino, Slovenia, and Spain. Getting the story straight. Anti-Israel activists have vandalized the entrance to the New York Times bureau in New York after it clarified that Gazan boy they write about in their hunger article actually suffered from a genetic disease. 5 days after publication, the New York Times acknowledged that its story referenced a Gazan boy, Mohammed Zakaria al-Mutawak, suffering from severe malnutrition, but later learned from his doctor and medical records that the child also had pre-existing health conditions. The editor's note underscored that the article had been updated to reflect these new details. Already long before October 7, 2023, it was difficult to distinguish between lies and truth coming out of Gaza. But since that day, all media coming out of Gaza seems to be controlled by Hamas, and news outlets around the world have a hard time not to be the spokesmouth of Hamas propaganda. In a rare move, the New York Times, after being confronted with the blatant lies they were distributing, admitted partially that their story had been false. The mobs in the street, however, made it clear that they rather adhere to the lies. For the redemption of Zion. Just days before Tisha B'Av, the commemoration of the destruction of the temple, archaeologists found a bronze coin in Jerusalem with the inscription "For the redemption of Zion." The coin was minted during the final year before the destruction of the Second Temple, nearly 2,000 years ago. It has been unearthed near the Temple Mount. It would seem that in the rebellion's fourth year, the mood of the rebels now besieged in Jerusalem changed from euphoria and anticipation of freedom at hand to a dispirited mood and a yearning for redemption, said Yuval Baruch, who has researched this site for over a quarter century. It is as the Jewish fighters at the time were asking for divine intervention. Israeli Minister of Heritage Rabbi Amichai Eliyahu echoed this sentiment, stating, "The coin that was found truly expresses the longing throughout the generations for redemption, for revival, for a free Jerusalem. 2,000 years later, we are privileged to discover this evidence in excavations in Jerusalem, another moving testimony that our roots here run so deep they cannot be uprooted. This is a strengthening and encouraging message to the people and the nation of Israel, just before the national day of mourning of the 9th of Av. Let us pray this week for the redemption of Zion, that the propaganda machine of terrorists and their supporting nations will be exposed and people will long for truth. Pray for wise and strong diplomacy on Israel's behalf, in order to convince nations what will help in freeing the hostages and ending the war in Gaza. This is the end of this week's weekly update. We wish you a blessed weekend and a blessed week ahead and hope to be in contact with you again next week.